Hello everybody, Justin from Playing Board Games here, and today I'm excited to be diving into the new FAQ that was just released by Fantasy Flight Games on July 11th, 2025. I was on vacation when this dropped, so there was a little bit of delay in getting this video out to all of you, but I hope you guys are excited. I actually don't know much. I've heard some things, but I'm pretty blind about what the changes are. We're going to go through, this is primarily reading about all the changes in the FAQ, specifically looking for rules clarifications, card errata, that kind of stuff. We're going to touch briefly on the taboo list and the current and like the format changes down at the bottom, but I'm going to be doing a video that's kind of more focused on those. So we're just going to get like the initial reaction out of those now, and the other one's going to be a bit more informative. So if you've already watched the taboo and the environments video, there's going to be some overlap there, but if you want to, all the FAQ stuff is going to be pretty new. Usually in these series I go on tangents and complain, or you know, just get a little bit spiky. So well, not in like the terms of the player archetype, I mean in terms of like a little pricky about stuff. So we're going to come in here and we're going to check all this out, and we're just going to read some things, and it's going to be a good time. All right, let's get going. This was new content 2.4, July 2025, the Drowned City edition. I heard there was also some changes to the ultimatums and boons, which is pretty cool. Okay. We are scrolling through slowly to make sure we haven't missed any, we don't miss any red stuff. All right, right here. So these are card errata. Sorry, this is what, no, rulebook errata, so this is pretty soft. This is just like mistakes made during setup. The AP area scenario setup version 2, the 5th bullet point should end with the inescapable encounter set, okay. Doom of Arkham scenario setup part 1, replace the 5th bullet point with gather the Randall Tillinghast enemy, all earned artifacts, and the Horror and Clay story asset and set them aside out of play. So what I'm curious about is what do these say otherwise? Because I don't know, it feels like with these things, I mean, maybe we did it right on our blind play. Travis just like inferred, but maybe it was just like a small little typo. But again, these aren't too exciting. All right, we're looking for errata. Okay. This is Forgotten Age, 127, Act 2D. Enshadowed Talents. The first line of mechanical text on this card should read, search all in and out of play areas for a hunting night gaunt. What the hell? 1 second. Okay, that's gotta be what? Threads of Fate? Calm down. What the frick is going on over there? Okay. So this is Act 2D. 2C. 2D. Search all, no, it's just simplifying. There's people were cheesing it by binding Jarns the Night Gaunts. Okay, okay. I mean, that seems like a fine change to have here. Just to have that kind of just set. This honestly just seems like a good, like, templating text for any of this in general, right? Just always, also chat, do you guys want me to zoom in on this a little bit for you guys at home? Should I zoom in a tiny bit? That's probably better for you guys. There we go. Okay. So, search all in and out of players. I mean, that just seems like a pretty good just like text to have. Okay, so there's this one up here, which is really crazy. In Azathoth's Domain, Circle Undone 330. This clue's threshold should be 2-player. What the hell did this say otherwise? Stop it! Why are you freaking out like this? Stop! What the fuck? It was different in the old print and the new box format print. Oh, okay, at a printing error in the clues. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, look at Chad. Chad knows all the intel. This is actually why I go on vacation, because then Chad does all the research and I don't need to worry about anything. It's nice and easy. Okay. Predator or prey? This card's first... what is this? This is just card errata still? Yeah. This card's first bullet point should reach each unengaged non-elite enemy moves once towards the nearest investigator. Right. Oh, that's a player card. Yeah, that's a player card. That's the Scarlet Key symbol. Alright. Each unengaged non-elite enemy moves once towards the nearest investigator. Each unengaged non-elite enemy. Oh, I mean that seems like an oversight. Yeah. Okay, that seems fair. Turning this to non-elite. That is the way. Okay, this is a parallel card. I'm not gonna really check this one out, but I will read it because that's what I said to do. This card's action ability should read, draw one non-location card revealed in this way, check your supplies. If you have chalk, you may choose one additional non-location card revealed and draw it. Okay, cool. Pitchfork. This card's action ability should read, your location, attached location gains. So... attach it to your location, attach location. Yeah. That seems like a good clarification there. I feel like this is one of those things. I'm gonna just say it. Here's the first prickly part that we're coming out in this one. I feel like, that this didn't need to be clarified because, like, you know? Like, I understand that, yes, it, like, technically, if you want to push your glasses up, you can, like, do this thing. So, sorry, something's up right now with this. I gotta pause this for a second. 1 second. Let me finish this point, then I'll figure it out. But, like, there is this, like, it does actually work if, like, it's just, like, you can, actually this, but I think at the same time, people just gotta, like, infer with, like, common sense on things. Like, the errata is obviously good to have, because it does just clarify it, and yes, you can also say the designer should probably just, like, put the right text on there, be a little bit more, like, have a little bit more control over that, but at the same time, I would never in my life try to game Pitchfork because of that, you know? But that's just me. Alright. This card's reaction ability should be a forced ability. Barn from the Feast of Hemlock Vale. Barn. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. That does make sense. That just being forced. Again, I don't see why you wouldn't, but makes sense. Yeah. Katarina Sochka. This card's reaction ability should read as a reaction when you reveal. This is to try to... Oh, wrong tab. This is to try to figure out solve like the whole Wendy problem, right? Well, people were saying there's no way. When you would reveal chaos tokens during a skill test you're performing, exhaust it. Okay, yep. Checks out. What does Wendy say? When you reveal. Yeah. So then Katarina is now a when you would reveal. When you would reveal chaos tokens during a skill test, you perform an exhauster, and then you do the replacement effect. Okay, nice, clarified. Works exactly as, again, like Pitchfork, works exactly as you expect it to. So there is that to it. Alright, Forbidden Sutra. Yes, this is another one that was really messy for this here. So this is now a Lightning Bolt instead, yeah. This card's reaction ability should instead be a Lightning Bolt ability and gains limit once per test. Lightning Bolt. During a skill test on a spell event, take up to 3 horror. For each horror, take and reveal additional chaos token for this test. Choose one of the reveal tokens to resolve and ignore the rest. Limit once per test. I'm still very intrigued by this card. Like, obviously we knew this was meant to be, again, a Lightning Bolt. This one, I'll give the designers less space than I did for, like, compared to Pitchfork, for example. Because, like, the symbols are, they're tricky, but I do feel like, I feel, again, well, that one was pretty obvious, but this is all just, all sensical errata here. Ah, yes, so this is actually funny. Descend into the abyss and ascend the wall. These are both from the Western Wall, right? This actual objective should read you may advance for both of these. This is actually something that I noticed when someone left a comment when Daniel and I were playing our sealed run. Someone said, don't you actually have to advance this? And I checked it out and I was like, wow, yeah, you actually do need to advance this. It's kind of like in Circle Undone, when you get all the keys on the right location and for the greater good, you have to advance it, right? So it's one of those things that now this is just makes it fit better, especially because a big thing about Drowned City is that it's all about pushing your luck on all the scenarios, and this allows you to actually do that as opposed to just end it. Okay. Core of the Vault. The first sentence of the card, unrevealed side should read, instead, core cannot be flooded, investigators cannot move into it. This is really funny to me, because Travis, Bryn, and I on our blind play, we just like felt we couldn't move into the center, right? And we just didn't. Even though there was nothing stopping us from doing it, we just felt like there's no reason for us to go in here until we've completed this thing, which is really funny that, again, we just kind of like inferred it correctly. That's just how it goes for us, I guess, but that's a good change. The final seal. The first on the back of the agenda should read, if the agenda is advanced by reaching its doom threshold, each investigator is defeated. Okay. As this is part of the Sepulchre of the Sleeper, I think. No Place Like Home. This is the one that Daniel played with on the thing. He said this errata was coming. The first force ability on this card should read, when you reveal location or put a location into play. Obviously, this is a very important change because in the AP area, you're not actually revealing locations, you're only putting them into play. All right. Now that is the boring stuff, and now we got to start talking about the fun stuff. So we're going to go into the rules and clarifications. I love this stuff. Nothing yet. Hey, let's go. We got something. Maybe this is going to be a short FAQ, chat. Is this a shorter FAQ? I mean, there actually still is a lot to go. You can't see it. 1.31, gaining, spending, and forfeiting actions. Investigators gain actions during step 4.2 of the upkeep phase. Any unused actions are forfeited when an investigator chooses to end their turn. During step 2.2.2, that's fun, of the investigation phase, an investigator may lose actions via card effects outside of their turn, but may not voluntarily spend actions outside the turn unless explicitly granted via card effect. Note, the investigators always begin the game with 3 actions. Alright, so chat, I have to ask you guys, what made this clarification happen? Was there an original thing about why? So this was from 1.3. Agatha, penguins. Agatha, penguins is what we're all talking about here. So the penguins, I get it. Agatha, because of her ability, is what you're saying. So was this actually, like, when was this defined of when investigators gain actions? Like, what's the new part here? They were never ever specified like this. Okay, so that 1.31 is just the section that it's in here for this. Okay. Was there really no window when actions were gained? Is that actually true? That seems crazy. I believe you. I guess it is just like said, you have 3 actions during your turn, right? You may take 3 actions. Very interesting that it took this long for this to be defined in here. That'd be kind of sick with it. Okay, that seems pretty alright. That makes it so a lot easier to know like when you can like lose actions, because it makes sense that you lose them during the Mythos phase, so you have to have them like before the Mythos phase, but technically after the Mythos phase, but the same sort of thing. So what happens to Gold Pocket Watch Repeat Investigator phase now? Nothing good. I don't think you get the actions anymore, right? I think with this rule with Gold Pocket Watch. If we go by specifically just this. Unless we just say, yeah, you also could just like hand wave Gold Pocket Watch and say it just works, right? But I think the easier thing is just skip Mythos. But yeah, technically, if you get the Investigator phase, you will not get any more actions. Now here's a question. Everybody. I'm going to open up a can of worms here, okay? What happens if you repeat the upkeep phase? Do you gain 3 actions twice? Does that let everybody take 2 turns if you repeat upkeep? Because I would argue it does. I think that's fine. It's kind of like repeating the Investigator phase. Yeah, rules written, is that how it would go? One more thing. When I was like quick thing during a Mythos phase, do an action, but I want to play a double event. You would spend one of your actions, right? You would have 2 actions left on your turn, right? That seems simple to me, Holy Helicopter. Yeah, it's effectively the same thing as repeating the Investigator phase. The only thing is you also get a Mythos phase and an enemy phase. You cannot do double events outside of your turn. Oh, there's another thing. May not voluntarily spend actions outside of their turn unless explicitly granted via a card effect. Okay, guys. Am I crazy, or is this, is the double thing granting you spending your action? Am I crazy? Does quick thinking not as explicitly granting? No, I would argue that the double cards are explicitly granting you the window to spend an action. Yeah, because like the card, like we gotta kiss it, guys. We gotta keep it simple, stupids. Okay? Because right now you got like, if you think about it, what's a card effect? The text on a card. A double event allows you to spend actions as an effect on the card. So that is explicitly granting you the time to do this. So what this is saying, voluntarily spend actions, you can't just like, I'm gonna spend an action right now to do this, right? You have your actions during the Mythos phase, but you can't use them by choice unless another card effect allows you to use them, right? Because the text on these cards are card effects. So penguin, talking about these penguins. I don't like, can someone give me context to why the penguins matter for this? The penguins? Shortcut during the enemy phase. Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good time. That would be it. In that case, yes, you could cheat the giant albino penguin. But I think in like any other phase, but I guess you couldn't because you have to spend the action. It's a cost, so you actually can't. Right? The move 3 green skill foot during the Mythos phase foot check. Nimble. So yeah, you'd have to spend the action there. Alrighty, Lemon, can you show your source for this, please? You're speaking with a lot of authority, and I'm just curious if you actually have a source or if you're just, like, hypothesizing, and I would like to know. No, I think with Where's Wall Drop, you cannot, unless you're being moved by a Mythos card effect, like a forced effect, you cannot move unless you have an action to spend with these guys. That just makes sense. Is there, like, clarification further in the FAQ doc, Lemming? Or are you just, someone can use 2 of their actions. All 3 of their actions, and then shortcut out of the location, even though it's, sorry, what, you guys, you speak fucking hieroglyphics sometimes. I don't even understand what you're saying here now. You're looking for. Is it in the FAQ? That's the most important question I'm trying to get here. So use 2 of their actions? And in the penguin space, then shortcut out of location, even though they didn't have an action to spend. But in that case, wouldn't they have had an action to spend? That's why I'm confused about that correction there. Justin takes a turn, spends 2 of his actions, end his turns. Travis goes next and pushes Justin with a shortcut, and Justin by blocked by the penguin. Okay, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Well, like, why would you do that? Well, like, no, I understand that makes sense. Now, like, before you didn't lose all your actions, now you do, so you can't do that. But my question is, why would you do that? Why won't I just, if I have the action, why don't I just move with the action? Shortcut can never push another investigator to the penguin at that location. I think they could. Yeah, exactly what AP90 is saying. It can shortcut a person that haven't taken their turn. Yep. Yeah, if they haven't taken their turn, they can spend the action. The question is if the penguin is explicitly granting or not. I'm gonna go on vacation again. Bye. Bye. Of course this is allowing you, this is a card that's explicitly telling you, granting you the opportunity to spend an action. What do you guys fucking mean? Is that a card effect granting you to spend it? This is honestly, this is tilting me the same way that when I read like people talking about like the current stuff. All right, I'm moving on. I'm not dealing with this anymore. You guys are all overthinking it like fucking crazy. If a card effect gives you any opportunity to spend an action, it's granting you it, and we're moving on. Because I want to like streaming again, not hate streaming again. All right, switch and swap abilities. Some effects instruct players to switch or swap 2 cards in play or a card in play with another card in an out-of-play area. Effects that switch or swap are functionally the same. When swapping cards, each card maintains its status, ready exhausted, and retains any tokens, damage, horror uses, etc. on it unless otherwise indicated. If it is an attachment, it is detached from its target game element during the swap and then reattached to the new element. For example, if Investigator swaps place with an enemy via Ethereal Slip, they are considered to have left their location and entered the other, but are not considered to have moved for the purpose of card effects such as Buried Secrets. Okay, how do we feel about this? I mean, it all makes sense. I guess the interesting thing here is the Buried Secrets move, right? How it doesn't count as moving. So swapping and switching is not moving. Raptor, I think the big thing is the Buried Secrets. I think it's in the example here. Ethereal Slip not counting as move feels weird. I agree, it does feel strange. Like, it feels strange, but at the same time, like, I get it, you know? Like, it doesn't feel strange. It's, like, weird because I'm physically grabbing and moving the cards. But it also, I can appreciate the definition being different, right? In terms of, like, game text, like game rules, right? So I can see that, the reasoning behind that happening there. Yeah, I mean, that seems pretty fair. So the pit you fall into, the Forgotten Age, follows you too? Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. The attachment part is weird. As Daniel mentioned, if you Ethereal Slip with an enemy that has an attachment, the attachment goes on you with this. Honestly, I actually like that. The attachment would fall off, I'd wager, because it's not an illegal target anymore. But I do think that that does kind of make sense. No, I see what Raptor Ritter is saying. The attachment part about swapping, switching, and attachment. Okay, no, I think you're right. I think you're right on that, Raptor Ritter. No, you're right. I think that other thing. Yeah, because it doesn't say anything about attachments. I assume the attachment... I'm with Raptor Ritter on this one, actually. I think the attachment goes with the swapped card. The only thing that stays are its status and any tokens. Or maybe it actually... I mean, I'm going to even go as far as to say with this ruling, the attachment gets discarded when this happens. If it is an attachment. This is even a weird sentence here. Would attachment fall under tokens? Damage, horror, uses, etc.? No. Tokens would be like charges, blah 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 blah, right? Charges, evidence. If it is an attachment, this is a weird sentence. But I think that this does actually fit. Kind of with like, let me look at tool belt. Get out of here, Penguin. No one likes you anymore. Switch. Attach. Yes. I think that this is actually for tool belt. Yeah, no, I'm with Raptor Ritter on this one. But I don't think attachment would fall under tokens here. I think that this is specifically to reference things like tool belt. I agree. I'm with you on that, Raptor. I'm with you on that. Because, like, this is not if it has an attachment, right? This says if it has an attachment, but if it is an attachment. So if a location is ruined, what happens with breach the door? I would argue, Pincock, that with this current ruling, when a swap happens, any attachments are discarded. This would need to say, I would change that opinion if it said each card maintains its status, retains any tokens, and any attachments on it. Otherwise, with my reading of this rule right now, and just in the KISS keep it simple stupid, the attachment goes in the bin. And yeah, I agree that replacements usually always state what to do in the scenario setups as well. But unless specified, what are they meaning by reattach? If it is, okay, you're cover up half of this with your thumb and then like cover up the bottom half, because these are actually two different things. If it is an attachment. This is when you're swapping attachment with the forms of tool belt. I will, however, say, I believe that even though that is my reading of this point here, that I feel like the flavor, the intention of this is that you also keep attachments, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this change to also say status, tokens, and attachments. I would not be surprised to see if that happens. Just because I feel like that all follows the same thing there. But I'm very curious about the move on this one, because I'm agreeing with what who said it? Someone said it here. The Pinkhawk, damage versus healing it, when you move damage versus healing. It does make sense conceptually, and it's weird. And I am also kind of looking forward to see what happens here. But I think this is it's a fine change. There's nothing too controversial there. All right, already in the FAQs. Already in the FAQs here. And I've only got mad at chat once. Okay. This one is usually at the bar. All right. Hey, does Daniel increase the difficulty of skill tests during the Mythos phase? Ah. Quick Learner's ability only affects skills during your turn. A skill test that initiates when your turn begins or at any point before the resolution of your turn get +1 difficulty. Likewise, plan of action. Yes. So this is finally it. This is the old ruling, right? This is like the ruling that before they had that controversial one that was in the email, right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's good. That's good to have this actually officially here. It also makes me feel nice that it's not going to have to be an issue that comes up. Like there was on game days, there was someone who would say, "I'm going to play Quick Learner the MJ way," and I'm like, "Yeah, we don't care. It's all good." Obviously, I don't follow email rulings. I actually don't even like try to keep up with them anymore. And I wait for them to be in the FAQ because they usually get it right in the FAQ. I do know what's coming though, so I've heard about that, so don't worry about that. But I'm a man of my word. I'll follow the FAQ, even if I disagree with it. All right. Can I use the reaction ability on Raven? Okay, what I also like to do with these FAQs is to try to answer them before I read this. So let's do this. Can I use the reaction ability on Ravenclaw to mark additional checkbox on its upgrade sheet beyond my deck building access? No, you can't do that. Dumb question. And the answer is no. The customizer card's levels equal half the total number of checked boxes rounded up. For example, if your investigator has deck building access to secret cards level 02, you cannot choose to mark more than 4 checkboxes on Ravenclaw's upgrade sheet. Easy. Oh, I still love this one, the Grizzled for that. Okay, oh, this is new. If I have a copy of Beguile attached to an enemy at a different location than me, what happens if I choose to activate Beguile's ability to perform an evade action there? What could this add? If you choose to activate Beguile's action ability and evade, you can choose any enemy attached to the enemy's location, including that attached enemy itself, and perform an evasion test. If you succeed, exhaust enemy and disengage from all investigators. If the target enemy is the alert keyword and you fail, the enemy attacks you, even though, oh, yeah, of course, even though you're not at its location. Yeah, that seems pretty straightforward as well. I could not believe. I remember when Alessandra was spoiled, and everyone was like, there were some people being like, does Beguile actually evade? And there was like packs in our Discord just being like, yes, of course it works. Of course it works. Just it works. Trust me, and of course it does. But yeah, no, that's a pretty good ruling there. Given her unique deck building, how can I play Subject 5U21, otherwise known as Susie, in standalone mode? I actually don't know how I'd answer this question. Let's see what I would say. Is Susie on this? Susie's not on this. Oh, but maybe 5U. She is. They don't call her Susie. Alright, deck building requirements. Neutral 0 to 5, cards from any class level 0. Huh. So let's say somebody wanted to build a Susie deck at a standalone game day, and they wanted to have some class cards in their deck. So what I would probably do is I would take one card of each class, right? I would take one card of each class, and I would reveal one of them. I would then have 6 XP to spend, and when I've spent that 6 XP, I shuffle that back in and reveal a new card. I then have 6 XP of that class, and I would do that until I spent all 29 XP. That's what I would do. When playing Standalone, you choose to embrace the chaos. After building a deck at level 0, following all deck building restrictions, randomly choose cards level 1 to 4 from your collection to upgrade your deck. Continue this process until the deck contains your desired amount of experience. I mean, that seems okay as well, just like the Ultimatum of Chaos. Oh, that's fucking... This, honestly, I'm gonna just say it. This is a prank. This is them pranking you. Do not do this. This is them, like... I actually like this. Even though this seems like a real answer, this actually, honestly, to me, this feels like a bit of a prank. This is trying to get people to shuffle one card of each of their collection together. That is so funny. That's really good. I would do my method instead. I think my method actually, does a pretty good job of showcasing at least the chaos randomness. But I like this. This is actually, I think this is a fine answer. The Ultimatum of Chaos for that. But Susie's not real. She can't hurt you. When an actor agenda instructs the players to reveal or put a new location into play, who is considered to reveal or put into play for the purposes of card effects such as Mouse Mask or Winning Green that trigger after you put location into play? Active player's turn. If not, lead investigator. That's a crazy answer. Okay, I mean, I think that's fair. Because it's actor agenda, right? Because acts and agendas are advanced by the players as a group, each investigator is considered to put the locations into play. Honestly, I actually don't hate that answer. I think that's a pretty reasonable answer to have here. I think that's pretty okay. I like anything that simplifies, right? Anything that simplifies the process of, like, having to comprehend rules, and I think that ultimately this is an answer that I think really simplifies it. So I think that's a nice one there. Man, the problem is there's so much stuff. Like, how do I internalize this? Who takes their top decks of the Circle Undone final act resetups? Lead Gator? Yeah, I would say lead Investigator. Or active player turn. I would still follow that. Okay. Does an effect that moves damage from horror one card to another count as healing that damage or horror? And obviously the answer to that is no. No, moving tokens does not count as healing for the purpose of card effects. Good to have clarified, but I think that's another easy answer. Holy shit. Oh my god. Okay, we have a big red block coming up here. When can I use Parallel Father Mateo's reaction ability? Let's find out. When an investigator would reveal a chaos token. Does that not answer it? Am I crazy, chat, or does that not answer it? That's actually really funny. I don't know why, that really got me. When can I use Father Mateo's ability? When an investigator would reveal a chaos token. When an investigator with a blessed token Standalone would reveal a chaos token for any reason, either via skill test or resolving card effects such as Absolution, you may trigger Father Mateo's ability. For that investigator to use the blessed token Standalone for that skill test or card ability. This counts either as revealing or resolving the token for the purposes of that ability. Obviously, that's the answer. I don't even know why, but that's there. As someone said, they probably got these emails enough that it does actually matter. This interpretation may also be applied to cards such as Tidal Memento, Eye of the Djinn, and Book of Living Myths. Perfect. When my turn ends, can I use Agatha Crane's ability to play an event that normally can only be played during my turn? Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't, right? Because, like, when you're ending your turn, you're still in your turn, right? It's just the end of your turn. It's like how the end of your life is still your life, you know? Even if you're dying, you're still technically living a little bit. You resolve Agatha Crane's ability during your turn, which is still during your turn. So you can play an event such as Cryptic Research with the text fast, play only during your turn. Perfect. Nailed it. When Gloria Goldberg chooses the order in which investigators draw off the encounter deck during the Mythos phase, are these cards drawn all at once and distributed in the chosen order, or are they drawn and resolved one at a time? They're drawn and resolved one at a time, like everything else. And so they just want a free first watch every turn with Gloria, right? The encounter cards are drawn and resolved one at a time. By extension, I've got an allows you to see the encounter card in turn before distributing these encounter cards. That's kind of like why this card was designed. You know? Like, this, like, card existing kind of answers that question, you know? Now, if I'm playing George Barnaby and I draw Cast Adrift during the upkeep phase, when and how is my hand size calculated? George! Your max hand size deals with the number of face-down cards beneath George Bar... Does that also not answer the question? Let's check something out. Let's check something out, folks. I went too far. Alright. Each investigator draws a card and gains a resource. Each investigator checks hand size. Your max hand size equals the number of face-down cards beneath George Barnaby. If there are no cards beneath George Barnaby, shuffle Cast Adrift into your deck. Otherwise, discard each card beneath George Barnaby. So you obviously check your hand size. George Barnaby's first ability is a constant ability. If the number of cards beneath George Barnaby changes, your maximum hand size immediately changes to the new number. If you draw, cast, drift during step 4.4, right here, you immediately discard each card from beneath George Barnaby, which sets your maximum hand size to 0. You can trigger George's ability to place one discarded card beneath him and draw one card, setting your maximum hand size to 1. Then at step 4.5, yes, you'll have one card left. Easy. Ah, this is the one. Since the upgraded Robert Carstane's ability states, I may discard the revealed asset or play it, can I choose neither option? Correct. The may in his Lightning Bolt ability means that you can choose to do one of the two options or neither of them. I knew this one was here, and while I still stand by my disagreement with it, I will respect the rule and even play with it like that. The only thing is that, as I always point out, I now think Amina's weakness. It follows the same sort of logic here. This may cause, which is different than the wording on everything else. And if wording matters, it does. This may cause the current agenda to advance. So I'm going to choose not to, because that's what the may here. The may in his Lightning Bolt ability is to choose one of the two options or neither of them. I'm going to concede defeat, but I'm going to believe I'm going to win the war. I lost this battle, but I do believe in the long term I'm going to win this war. Because it is, it doesn't make any sense, and I think it's an issue. So. You may versus this may. Getting a bit too semantic for me on that one is what I'm going to argue for people who want to argue against me on that one. All right. Can I still use my Investigator's signature cards after using Transfiguration to treat the front of my Investigator card as 4 different Investigators? Yes. Consider we both Investigators. This is really nice to have this here. The back is still the old Investigator. Transfigured normal winners into Ursula Downs. You can still play your signature. Yeah, Livre Dubon. Perfect. Oh, this actually doesn't even clarify the, I actually thought this clarified the Father Mateo like Jacqueline Fine, but I guess it still kind of does in a way, which is good to have. Sabeth, welcome to the goddamn table. It's a pleasure to have you. If I use Transfiguration of cards placed beneath my Investigator, what happens to those cards? I think they just live there forever. They just live there unless like you're the Investigator you change into can somehow interact with them. So, like, so let's just say, for example, I was Diana Stanley. And then I put 5 cards beneath me, and then I transformed into Safina Rousseau. If I drew Elder Signs, I would get those cards back. And then if I switched back into Diana Stanley, I could reload again. I think that's all legal, right? I'm not saying I want to do this. But I think that's all, like, legal is my guess for the ruling that we have here. Any Investigator placed beneath your Investigator card remain there after using Transfiguration. If the new Investigator card interacts with cards in the same state, the new Investigator can interact with those cards. Oh, okay. It's going to matter if they... Oh, yeah, they both say face up or face down. Okay, so they need to be in the same state on that. Okay, that's chill. I mean, that thing that makes a lot of sense. If I use Memories of Another Life to play a card that summons one or more bonded cards, can I summon those cards even though they were not set aside at the beginning of the game? Sorry. That's an interesting one. If I use Memories of Another Life to play a card that summons one or more bonded cards, can I summon those cards even though they were not set aside at the beginning of the game? Hallowed Mirror. I don't see why you couldn't. I don't see why you couldn't, right? Like, the argument is that the cards aren't in your bonded zone. But I would argue that when you get the card in your deck, because it wasn't in your collection at all, that those cards become bonded to you. I would even go as far, I actually don't know how bonded works, but I would go as far as say that bonded cards are always considered to be there. Summons one or more bonded cards. If your deck contains a card. I don't know. Yes, all the bonded cards should normally be set aside when the game begins. You would you would set any corresponding bonded cards aside out of play when you play cards with members of another life. Okay, I feel like that's a little bit messy. Excuse me. Yeah. I mean, I get it. It makes sense. That was what my instinct said, that I don't see why you couldn't. I think the explanation is a little bit leaving a little bit for me. I think I would rather if just they ruled that bonded cards were just always there, you know? Bonded cards just exist. They're just like a pool that you can tap into when you have the card that accesses them. I think that ultimately that would make things smoother. Okay. Path to Carcosa. Question, can I activate the action ability on a copy of a straitjacket that is in another investigator player's threat area? Yeah. Yeah, you can. Yes, even though it's being treated as an asset, it still has a treachery in your threat area. Another player's may trigger its ability. Am I crazy? Get out of here, Penguin. No one likes you, part 2. Yeah, it's in your threat area. Okay, that's easy. That's easy. Okay. If you defeat 2 or more copies of Persistent Construct at the same time, does the force effect on one of them bring the other back into play? No, it wouldn't. I can't activate Hemlock weaknesses. Are those on player cards? No, this is in your threat area. You can put it into play in your threat area. So that should be activatable by other people. Yeah. Yeah, so you don't put the other one to play because they leave play at the same time. They don't see each other leave. They leave as one. That makes sense for me. So no. Use a force effect that defeats multiple enemies at once by cards such as Storm of Spirits, Dynamite Blast. Each defeated persistent constructs defeated simultaneously, and this cannot be retrieved from the victor's display via the forced effect of another. Yep, that makes sense. Easy peasy. All right, well, that's it for the FAQ. Let's move on to Taboo, which I'm very excited to actually see what exists here. All right, Flurry of Blows and Archibald McVeigh are both down to 3 experience. I think that's pretty all right. I mean, I was a big believer that Flurry of Blows was fine as a 1-of at 5 XP, but I think now at 3 XP, you could probably feasibly build a pretty good 2-of out of that in your deck and be like a pretty good killing machine with a melee build. So that's a nice change. And I think Archibald is also better at 3. I thought he was like, he wasn't good at 5, like he was like below average, but I've never been disappointed seeing someone play an Archibald, but he was a little bit expensive. You know, I think it was a little bit expensive for sure. He feels better at 3. Alright, Swift Refluxes. This card gains limit twice per round. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's a good change. Yeah. Generally, anything that stops infinites is probably better for things, so that's an alright change to have. Is there some additional reason? This is the time to ask before I make the video about it. Normally playing this card? I mean, if you have a deck that goes infinite, fast actions are a good way to go get the payoff for it, right? Chuck Fergus. This card's first point now reads, that event gains fast play only during your turn. Yeah, that's a good change. I think, honestly, if he was designed today, he would just say that, and that's kind of like where he exists now. I think that I'd argue that the designers sometimes forget things like that. I know I do in my own games when I'm playing with them, like tweaking stuff out. Suddenly you do something, you're like, wait a minute. The ruling for that, I mean, like, just the fast, it means you could play it like whenever, right? And that's kind of crazy, so I think that's a good change there. All right. Power Word. This card's action ability now reads, if attached to the location, parlay, test Brain 2. This is down from Brain 3, right? They still cut out Mercy, which I think is good. Yeah, that seems alright. A lot better, but, I mean, man. I was always a believer that Power Word was like a very strong card when you had 10 XP in it, but that's kind of like the point of a 10 XP card. I never felt like it deserved this actual parlay nerf to it. I think even just getting rid of Mercy is probably like good enough, right? But I don't even think it needs the parlay on it, to be real. I still think when they made it 3, that was crazy. 2 is better, obviously, because it works with Fine Clothes. But I think ultimately, I think Power Word could drop this and just keep the Mercy. I think that's fine. I found a Pathfinder shortcut on my player card collection. Is Hiking Boots an auto include? Maybe 1 XP summon servitor with movement doesn't take an ally slot. Yeah, you're going to want some way to find movement compression, whether that be by like getting more clues or like getting stuff for free. Hiking Boots, I think, is a pretty fine choice, but ultimately, I think if you just find some sort, like, don't look at necessarily that I need to save on movement, but instead turn it into I need to save on actions, right? Because if you're getting more clues for an investigate action, it's essentially like you're moving for free, right? So, like, look at it like that way as well. So, like, don't necessarily be like, do I look for movement? I mean, Hiking Boots is a good way to find that movement. But instead, you should be being like, how can I get as much power in a single action, and then your moves feel less bad to take, right? Hold up. This card's ability now reads, if you succeed, play the chosen asset, reducing its cost by the amount you succeeded by. Yeah, that's a great change. Yep, I think that's a much better tweak here for Hold Up, and I think there's actually going to be reasons to play it with that one. Alessandra's crying about Fine Clothes. I'm going to tell you Alessandra's going to be okay. Hand-Eye Coordination. This card's ability now reads, resolve an action ability on a level 0 to 3 tool or weapon asset you control, ignoring all costs. That's a fun change. That's a fun change. Sleight of hand, but for hand-eye coordination. I'll be honest, I thought this card was pretty bad. I also think the upgraded version is kind of bad. I don't think it's good. You know, I mean, I do appreciate you looking. I do appreciate you diving into it. So thank you for the effort, at least to find the source. I'm not saying like that, even though that I disagree with my interpretation, I'm not going to say I'm right. That's just my interpretation, but I do appreciate you digging into that. The updated version is kind of worse. It is kind of worse in ways, you know? Can I use it on Remington 4? I think that's okay. Thank you, Siveth, by the way. Does it know the discard for nautical charts? Whatever discard tool? I would say, yeah, it's a cost. I like using it on signature assets. Yeah, I mean, that's... Again, I actually think... is something they often forget, and I think it's worse for signature assets not having a level. I think that's a bummer, but I think it's a fine change. But again, I never thought hand-eye coordination was good, and I don't think this is... It's, like, interesting. But I think, like, the card that you want it for is Sledgehammer, which is about also to rotate out, so maybe they could have just done that. Alright, Blood of Thoth. This is what everyone came to see. This card's reaction ability reads, when Doom is placed on a card you control, place one resource from the token pool on Blood of Thoth as an offering. This card's Lightning Bolt ability reads, Lightning Bolt. During the investigation phase, except during an action, spend 2 offerings and exhaust Blood of Thoth. Choose an investigate location to immediately take an action as if it were their turn. So, I believe now, it does not exhaust to place Doom, and it's 2 offerings. Am I correct with that? And then also, it's only during the investigator phase now, right? It's not even just all the time. So it also has, it's only during the investigator phase. So that's kind of a nerf, but a huge buff regardless. Oh yeah, it's remove all offerings, but now it's only remove 2. Spend 2. Yeah, Blood Pact triggers at every boost. Honestly, I think that's great. That's a big buff to Blood of Thoth. And I think it's going to be a very fun card to play with. I think that's a good change. It's not like crazy. So this is what I think what the card should have shipped as. Because this is something that Beard and I have been talking about while we've been designing Doom cards. Sorry, I need a cough drop. Is that Doom cards should have a good payoff. Because the cost of placing the Doom is really high. And yes, there's ways to mitigate the cost of that Doom, right? But when Doom, I would say, yeah, when Doom is moved onto, when Doom is moved onto Sin Eater, it does, yeah. 2 blood plaques equals +3 actions every witching hour. But you only get 1 action a turn, right? Like, we have to talk for a second, guys, because everyone's going crazy, but that already exists. That already exists. And I don't even really play it anymore. So I think it's a good change, and I think it's a good change specifically for, like, Amina and Marie. But I think that it's, like... I don't know, I'm getting this vibe from chat that it's going to be, like, crazy. I don't think it's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be good, though. It's a very nice change. I wouldn't be surprised if, in the long term, they actually, in the next one, they turn this into 3 offerings again. I wouldn't be surprised. However, I'm also happy with how this is going, because I feel like this is what a Doom deck needs to have a good thing. Hey! Hello! How's it going? Alright. And the last thing we got here is Forbidden. The Necronomicon has been shot in the head, and it is dead. And honestly, good riddance. Big Sad, they just put out the Doomplay video, and then they just fixed a huge tool. You say Big Sad. Do you know what I say? That means I have another video I can do. I think that this card is good that it got killed. I think this card, like Double or Nothing, has kind of just been a problem. How often do you find you and your group, play group rules lawyering during a campaign? Honestly, not much. I don't like doing it. I like to avoid it as much as I can. But I've also played this game a lot. Travis and Bryn kind of just like defer to me for stuff. But I try not to, we try not to do too much rules lawyering. But yeah, no. I think that ultimately getting rid of the Necronomicon is just the correct choice. And it's just the right thing to do. I've noticed Travis checks a bit more nowadays with you on rulings. That is true, because I also do sometimes have to just be like, I don't know. Like, this is what I would do, but I don't know. So, I don't knock him for trying, for checking that. I'll translate it. Yeah, the Necronomicon, Astute Dunsparce translation. Yeah, I think it's a pretty alright taboo list. I wouldn't mind them. So basically my hope is, so like when we get into current, we actually like get the next set. I think that like things like Flamethrower can drop off. I think that like I mean, I'd kill some of these. Like, once Underworld Market rotates out, I'd kill Underworld Market's experience. I mean, I think this should be killed anyway. I would also just kill some of these things that are just, like, nerfs. I would drop Pathfinder. I would just put that down to 1 XP. If they truly want to, have, Legacy be a powerful place to play your cards, they should just like unnerf these. Also make this a little bit cleaner. I think some of them some change, like Lola should keep her stuff, right? But I don't know what you mean by that, Care signed. Or however you say your username, my apologies. Okay. I like these ultimatums. Ultimatum of Exile. Treat each card with exile in its text box if it only had campaign mode only. That's pretty nothing. That's okay. It's not there to have. Okay. Ultimatum of the Faulty Carburetor in Horror and High Gear. During setup, if you're playing with exactly 2 investigators, each investigator must choose the same vehicle. Hey! Where was that guy? There was that guy in our chat who was like, you can choose 2 different vehicles and you can leave one running. That's really, I mean, this should have just been in the rule. That's great! Let's go! Volclass! Yeah! Let's go, Volclass! I have a small collection, so I'm ignoring current format for now. But when I try to make a deck using every expansion on ArkhamDB, I get overwhelmed, so I understand why the format exists. Honestly, probably one of the most based takes I've ever read in my life. That is very sensible, and I appreciate you sharing that. That's the way to do it. That's the way. Time Roller, 70 months, the Golden Table. How's it going? Thank you for your support. Today I learned playtesters don't try to actively scum the scenario. I know, eh? I don't know why people are freaking out about current. Me either, brother. Me either. All right, Ultimate of the Sleeper, Doom of Arkham Part 2, the health value of each Cthulhu enemies and rage side gets X player health. I think that's a good thing to make it more difficult. I think that's a nice change. All right. Now here's the thing that I was most interested about to actually see this, and this was the one thing that I read in advance on my vacation, because this is the stuff that I am most interested in. Okay, when deck building, a group may build their decks from the player. Sorry, 1 second. Not seen anyone freak out over it. Seen many say they do not like it or don't wish to play it as it guts too much. You are a good person because you probably aren't on Reddit or Facebook. That's what I got from that. Because let me tell you, on those forms of social media, people are going nuts about it. Yeah. You're not on Reddit. You are, because I think that's very fair. I think, like, if you do not want to play current, because, so here are my 2 opinions. If you do not want to play current because you want to play with all your cards or it's too limiting for you, that's great. Like, if you don't want to play current, just play Legacy instead. If you do not want to play current because you do not like how it guts your collection, or alternatively you want to play with all your cards, don't tell people that you want to do that. Just do it, you know? That's my big thing, right? It's just like, there's nothing wrong with not liking current, but, like, you don't need to let people know you don't like current because Legacy's there for you. I think that a big thing is, like, so I told Eric about this yesterday, right? Eric's reaction was just, oh, that makes sense. Card games get formats. And I was like, well, yeah, Eric, you're 100% right. And I wish more people kind of just, like, had that thing where it's like, card games get formats. It happens. And it is one of those things where it's just like, there's that meme of, like, the group of people talking, and then there's the person to the side where they say, I don't like current, I'm going to only play Legacy, and then everyone does the thumbs up from that group, and then they just keep talking. And I think the inverse applies. I think if you like current and you're going to want to play current, you don't need to tell the people who play Legacy that they are not playing actual Arkham. Just let people play the game. That's why these format exists in these 3 different formats that I have there, right? So, like, just, like, chill and play the game. That's really what it comes down to. All right. I wanted to read that thing that someone said about... I argue the Robert ruling is something that Rogue needed to stay afloat to the current environment that will impact their power level. Felt like a very strange take for rules clarification. Yeah, that's a strange take. I actually think the Robert ruling, I don't dislike because it is too strong. I actually think it is fine for a big card like that to do that, especially when we go into the current environment. I just don't like it because words don't work that way. In my opinion. I'll say that again before someone gets salty in the comments. I already see you typing that. How's it going? How's it going? All right, I saw this one from there. To precise my thing, in each scenario there are new cards you can add to each scenario ever. Wouldn't it be smart to include characters cards you could buy with experience, but for this scenario only, like the Necronomicon? I'm very intrigued, and I'm sorry that I do not understand, and I'm trying to, because that's very interesting to me. In each scenario there are new cards you can add to each scenario ever. So what you're saying is, like, a Necronomicon that you can only buy for, like, even if we go from, but I'm kind of into this Raptor Ritter. I'm kind of into this. But, like, what if it was, like, campaign cards? Like, say, for example, instead of one scenario, but it was, like, in the Dunwich Legacy, you can buy the Necronomicon for that campaign only, right? So take it away from just individual scenario, but look at it as the whole campaign. I think there's something there. And I think it would be pretty cool if that was explored in some way. I actually think that's kind of a neat idea. Okay. All right, now let's actually read this. I got sidetracked, but I'm not complaining about getting sidetracked. I love getting sidetracked. Yeah, like going to the local market and buying with XP. I think that's kind of cool. It actually reminds me a lot of what like the Marvel Champions had for one of their campaigns. Okay. When deck building, a group may build their current decks from the player card pool using one of 3 different environments: current, limited, and legacy. These are optional variants that push players to build their decks creatively using a smaller card pool. The 3 environments are outlined below. Current. Players who wish to play in the current environment may only deck build with core cards in the most recent Investigator expansions as follows. ARKHAM Horror core set, the 5 starter decks, specifically these ones, they're the ones that exist, and the 3 most recently released Investigator expansions. For example, if playing with the current environment, this would include Scarlet Keys, Feast of Hemlock, and Drowned City. So, I propose, I said this in the Discord, we are currently in the Drowned City current format. So we are in Drowned City current. I think it's just the best way to do it, right? So we have Drowned City, Feast of Hemlock Vale, Scarlet Keys. Does this make it sound more or less likely that we get new starters? In its current text, I think it's less likely, but this is beta. I think this was just to get the ground underneath us. I think the thing that I learned from this is that you can assume that this is what they want to keep in print. Some form of this, right? And I think that that is what exists. So this is like, well, you can kind of infer what they're keeping in print. And this is kind of what we expected, right? ARKHAM Core, and then they said 2 to 3 sets, so 3 for ARKHAM Horror seems right. Okay. Yeah. Honestly, Winifred being legal is huge for rogues. That's ginormous for them. Legacy environment. When deck building in a legacy environment, players may build their decks and use investigators, player cards, or weaknesses from any ARKHAM Horror the card game product. There are no restrictions whatsoever. I do think, Holy Helicopter, that is what we can infer from this. That only the revised core, the starter decks, Scarlet Keys, Feast of Hemlock Vale, Drowned City are going to stay in print. When the new expansion comes out, the Burning Flames of Cthulhu, we're going to drop Scarlet Keys, and then Hemlock, Drowned City, and the Burning Flames of Cthulhu are going to be in play. In print, rather. And then we got Limited, which is probably my favorite thing they added because it reminds me a lot of what Travis Byrne and I do. Players who own most or all previously released ARKHAM Horror the card game products may wish to play with a limited environment. This environment allows a group to create a small card pool of their choosing. In order to create your own limited environment, you may only build decks with cards of the following products: ARKHAM Horror card game core, 5 starter decks, Nat Cho, those ones, and 3 different Investigator expansions of your choice. All player cards from a single cycle would count as one Investigator expansion, including those released across multiple Mythos packs in the same cycle. So this is really cool. This is basically what we do in our limited drafts, which we actually call like limited drafts, which has been very fun to see this kind of put in here. This is a very fun way to play Arkham. We actually even do it without these. So this is actually like an even stronger thing. We just actually do 3 expansions. So that's kind of fun. I agree as well. Where's Waldrop? This beta here, we're not actually in current yet, and I also think we haven't seen ramifications of current design until we start getting to the news cycle. So I think that there's been a lot of people who have been judging and looking at these formats with what we know now, as opposed to what we're going to see once we start seeing design decisions made going forward. And also Raptor Ritter, the Burning Flames of Cthulhu, that's just a joke. It's not real. If playing in a group, the group must decide whether or not each player may use their own limited environment. If the group as a whole wishes to play in the same chosen limited environment, as an additional optional variant, you may choose to include investigators and the signatures from each expansion in your collection. So notably, current does not do that, but current limited could basically be current with this rule. And then regarding parallels, promos, and story assets, the existence of parallels, promos, and story assets written within certain scenarios may prompt additional questions regarding whether or not they may be used in a given environment. These cards exist out of a defined environment and structure and may be utilized at the group's discretion. Yeah. They're free. Print and plays parallels are free, so you should be able to play them no matter what. I think the limitation on which investigators is my biggest meh on current. Only allowing 4 investigators per class is kind of sad. Okay, I think that's a fair statement, but let me offer some explanation as to think why it's important that investigators are restricted. Current is an adaptation forced onto the design of Arkham because of a change in printing philosophy, right? They want to print less because they're going to run out of money if they keep printing everything. Current then became, because of this, a way for new players to get into the game, but then also for discussion to stay defined in terms of when a new player comes in the game, they can be like, what's current? I'm in the conversation immediately. If, for example, someone is starting a conversation about current, but then they just suddenly start talking about Will Yorick, right? That person will now suddenly be outside of the conversation, and it kind of defeats the entire point of current. That's why I actually think that with limited, you can kind of just build your own current, but you would then define it as limited, like, and then an asterisk, like current plus this guy, right? I think that's a very fair thing that you're feeling. I think that's a very fair limitation. It's going to be sad for me to, like, leave Silas behind in current, but that's also why Legacy exists, and you can kind of just, like, build your own thing. But I think that ultimately these are the two important formats, current and Legacy, because of the discussion that they're going to facilitate and kind of police is the wrong word. I guess, like, dictate is also the wrong word. These sound so, like, guide is the right word I'm looking for. Like, guide conversation to make it easier for communication to happen about the game, in my opinion. Will this change deck restrictions and new investigators because current is more impactful? Sorry, Pinkhawk. Go again on that. I think overall, though, this is a good FAQ. I'm not even upset about the Robert ruling. I've kind of just accepted that that was the way. And now I'm going to do it. And I'm going to have fun doing it because it's enjoyable to do that. I think we might start seeing more than one investigator per class. Ah, man, I can't even begin to predict of what can happen with the future of this game. I can't even try to fathom. Like I said, I've said this in the past, my perfect hope was that the starter decks actually rotate and we get new starter decks every, like, 3 years. But I don't know if that's going to happen, but that would be nice for me. Deck build based on traits is really small in Chronos. I mean, yeah, okay, so I think that's fair. But I think a big thing is that ultimately it's okay. Scorgan the Toad, that's a great username. Welcome to the goddamn table. I think it's ultimately okay that trait-based deck building is small and current because, like how I was able to experience a shit Rita that got better, new players, when they get an investigator in current and they like the game and they keep expanding, they too will see that investigator grow. I played this game when I was just with Dunwich, Carcosa, Forgotten Age, and the game was still fun. I played this game with just Innsmouth, and the Curse and Bless were still fun, right? And that's kind of like what it all comes down to. Everything's not going to be OP, as it is today in current. It's still going to be strong, I think. But it's not going to be as, like, brain dead OP as it is right now, but that's what Legacy is for. And if you want to do that, you just can. Because, like, I think that's a problem in this industry. Those rules will be followed by new players. It's just a way to enter this game, but limited. I agree. I think that the majority, I mentioned this previously in the video, I think with Daniel as well. I think that the majority of people are going to start playing current, but then once they start getting their stuff rotated out, they're going to just fall into Legacy. And I think that ultimately, that's good, right? That's okay. Because the designers are designing for this. But this is always going to exist, and this is always going to be the way that I think the majority of people are going to play Arkham. But current is going to facilitate constant discussion and constant focus for the designers that they can work at with a smaller pool that they can now design with that intention, right? So I agree that I think that over time, there's going to be more players playing Legacy. I mean, right now there already is. There's going to be already. But like when a new player comes in, they're going to start growing into the Legacy environment. And I think that's ultimately good for Arkham. All right. Anything I wish was on the FAQ and Taboo? Not really. No. Elam, we're gonna jump on that, but I think we're gonna try to talk about this out of this video. But I'm gonna end this video here. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this look at the FAQ. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by liking, commenting, subscribing, or if you want to go above and beyond, you can join all these awesome names on our Patreon down in the video description. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Have a good one, and as always, a GG's.